So the biggest problem I see with security aspect is like there is a technical problem, right? The security was built by, I would say, it's early stage of the product, right? So there is a lot of things that develop and there is a lot of features built on top of it, but at the same time there was I don't feel like there was you know deep reviewing of it from a user perspective. And I know that we have like, I know that secure engineers test all the features. They have a lot of example projects, they test against it. So technically I have no complaints, but all this is fails when I just take GitLab product, I take out of DevOps default pipeline, I take a real world application and none of it work. And it's even not comfortable to use because again, you're faced with a lot of false positives, which you have no control over, and it's container scanning to blame for, right? But it's part of after DevOps, so we need to be aware of it. Then there is no dismissal button, so I need to dismiss every out of this 200 false reports, right? Which is also not user friendly. Then the merge request widget that is more like a representation of, it's more like a static information rather than encouragement for a user. And for security dashboard, I think static representation is somewhat expectable, but for merge request widget, the point of merge request is just to encourage people to merge it or detect if extra work needs to be done before it's get merged, right? So it's either encouraging or encourage you to proceed or encourage you to work more toward it to improve, right? The codes that you submitted. So that's kind of a set of of problems that I had in first, I don't know, 2 hours of facing GitLab. And further on, there was like some things that were annoying, but less less important. Like there was a Dust environment deploy that failed silently, but the job was green. It was not yellow like allowed to fail. It was green like it succeed, but in the log it was a syntax error or deployed to Kubernetes error. So there was like there was also another job, I think Dust or container scanning failing when container registry is not enabled. Like, there was like a lot of places when if I wouldn't go to the job, to the log itself and wouldn't notice there is a syntax error, I would be confident that, jobs are just green and everything is great. And all this is described in this creator pairing and the issues. I understand there's like a lot of items and it's much harder, like to go through it. So I will just give a brief summary then. And besides that, there was also a thing with security dashboard, which relies on the last pipeline, which shows you like, hey, you have no data, but then you push and pipeline fail. And the dashboard again looks like a new page, like there is no data while it was before. It was a pipeline run before. I understand there is a technical thing beside it that we don't save states. We probably don't have the proper database records. But the idea is that when I'm working with security dashboard, just appearing and disappearing, and when it's appearing, it's not very, encourage you to work with it because there's like not much in a way of working with dismissed vulnerabilities, right? And I saw that there is a toggle landed just recently that allow you to filter, like, show and hide dismissed vulnerabilities. So I know that a lot of work is in progress right now. So it's like, I put a discount on that, right? So it's totally good. But what I think the problem is in general is that I would like us to look at the security features as a part of user experience within the this whole product that we sell users, within with real world application, with after DevOps, with Kubernetes cluster connected, with all that said, the experience should be great. Like Auto DevOps by itself is a great experience. You create a project, you connect Kubernetes cluster, and you have basically container building, you have tests, you have all the security or quality scanning and deployment, and all that work out of the box. And that's like 1 hour of our great things that GitLab provide, like a strong side is that, hey, if you are advanced user, you can always tweak your parse toward, like, disable this job, enable that job, and like make it super customizable, super tacky. But the out of the box experience, like the GitLab way of GitLab, Kubernetes, Runner, Auto DevOps, all on defaults, should just work and give user this pleasant first experience.
So
yeah.
I want to ask a question about one of the things you said a little bit ago, because I agree with it. You're talking about there's no historical data, so it's hard for us to say whether it's new or it's been addressed and so forth. That's one of the items I've been discussing with the development team, and right now their comment is that there'd be a scalability problem, that if the volume of things we add to the database would lead us to having a poor user experience if they started tracking, when was this issue found, when was it addressed, did it come back, and so forth. In your experience as an architect, both of GitLab itself as well as other solutions in your career, do you see that scalability problem if using a database like Postgres or something that's a little bit more friendly to large data sets?
Yeah, I think we'll be fine. I mean, we are using Postgres for comments. There's like billions of comments on GitLab.com. We use it for CI jobs, and CI jobs is like every hour pipeline contains, I don't know, out of 100 CI jobs, and there's just enormous amount of data we generate on database. I don't think that vulnerabilities will be, I don't know, like exceeds the volume of CI or comments by I don't know, 100x multiplied to look for, I don't know, for some weird big data technical solution. I think I reviewed few merge requests from Victor, I think, yeah, Victor Zagorodny, who is from security team, and he's refactoring vulnerabilities, and he builds this MVC around like vulnerabilities as a first-class citizen in GitLab, where we put more in database. So we put findings in database, we put vulnerabilities in database, we link it all together. So for example, you can have one vulnerability, right, that appears 100 times in the project on different branches, So we create one vulnerability and we create a lot of vulnerability findings, and we link all this together. So I think there is no problem right now with technical side, with architectural side. What we need to do, like I've seen there is some progress to be made on this issue. I don't have a link to this issue right now, but yeah, I think yeah. We can add it later to the agenda, or someone can. But architecture-wise, it's no problem. development-wise, the problem is that we were doing boring solution up to a certain time when people understood boring solution with, so here's the thing: if it's not a boring solution if it does not bring value to user, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at some point, like originally when we scanned for security vulnerabilities, we started as an artifacts, right, in CI jobs. And then what we did on security dashboard, we just do asynchronous request for this JSON from artifact and render the dashboard. And it was totally fine. But then we wanted more. And instead of immediately start building this database model, we started doing all this half solutions, which cause this strange situation when we don't have a good fingerprint on certain issues. We have a really database model is in bad shape, and what Victor is doing is an attempt to kind of reorganize it into something useful, and I think in half a year we'll be fine there. Like the backend will have the data, we have the right model, we have we'll get everything, in shape, unless we, of course, start blocking this technical debt thing and start instead push for more, bad decisions. But I don't think it's happening. I mean, so far, I see that we are on the right track. And I'm not worried about backend side. I'm more worried on how we perceive the, what we are built. And we test it, we close the issues, we mark things as accomplished, we test it against test projects, but then the user experience on what is default GitLab way, which is after DevOps, Kubernetes, and like default pipeline is just bad, right? And it's it's probably like, the saddest part of it, because it's not the hardest part. It's just like we built such a hard technical thing, but in the end, just it's not useful to user because we didn't think through it as a person who will use it, one step forward.
Yeah, I think we have a very receptive audience here, DZ, because I don't think we disagree with anything you said, because I've watched Valerie for months work on addressing exactly this stuff. And then David is new to the team, but he's jumped in, and the things that you're seeing are things that we've also identified. So just, you can take comfort in knowing we're not looking at it and going, no, it's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah, and the thing that led to the conversation, DZ, with the development team, I pasted it in. It's a screenshot from what the secure team and I are putting together for how we want to see vulnerabilities we talked about. And because we have in there status, whether it was open or closed or whatever, that's what led to the question I asked you, right? Like, I agree with you. I came from a company where we were reporting hundreds of issues with every run. And we were able to scale and keep track, like 60 days worth of historical data for people to see if they recreated problems. But some of what you were touching on, I think, is in that table. And we can take the new stuff you're sharing with us and expand what we're asking UX to start putting together. Because I think to echo what Christy said, I think we all agree that we're kind of at like, we're not even to the crawling part in a crawl, walk, run. Some of that's the team is coming up to speed, part of that's we're still hiring, but I definitely see in the next little bit here, we're going to start getting to that crawling or walking pace of addressing some of the items that you're addressing, as well as a couple of customers that are raised.
Good. So that's like, you all agree with me. And my point being being developed further. Okay, we're still building this backend data. We still it's ongoing process, but here's the thing, like first, if we would test security features with auto DevOps, with default pipeline, we would see a lot of false positives from container scanning, right? If we would see a lot of false positives with container scanning, we would think, okay, what is the use for user all that, right? They need to work with it somehow. If they are going to use our products there, we need to, like, we give them data, right? Now we need to give them tools to work with it. And if it's like, okay, container scanning is not perfect, right? It creates a lot of false positives, especially in default pipeline where users have no Docker files, so they no control of it. So what they should do in this case? They're not going to live with 200 vulnerabilities that will show up on the security dashboard on every merge request widget for a month until we fix container scanning. Now we should give them a tool to like just dismiss all that. So we could give them a dismiss all button. So they press it, all those vulnerabilities are gone, and the only news that will pop up will be somewhat related, right? So like we just give them a tool to fix the broken products that we provide, right? Now, second thing, like, okay, they dismissed all. Now they go on security dashboard, but they still see all these dismissed vulnerabilities. So what we can give them, we can give them a toggle and hide by default the dismissed vulnerabilities. So if they want to see all, they can do it with a toggle, but by default just hide all dismissed. It's not, I don't tell how exactly it must be, it's just my thinking right now, right? So, okay, so now container scanning is, yeah, it's not perfect, but we give people a way to dismiss all and hide all those dismissed vulnerabilities, so they can actually focus on more relevant data that came from dependency scanning, from SaaS. Now, next thing is people create a merge request, right? We need to show them what's important. They can go to the security dashboard or they can expand their merge request widget to see all the details, but the less information in collapse way we show them, the better. You know, it's like when you go to the first time, see the product and you have a lot of information, you are overwhelmed. But most of the product people know what user, when they sign up for first time, what their action should be, right? For example, GitLab, what is the first action that user will do after they sign up? Yes?
Yeah, I know, I agree with what you're saying. I apologize, I just noticed the time because I'm supposed to be on a customer call starting now.
Okay.
So, but I do appreciate the time and the feedback.
There's something I heard, David, is that with a brand new team, you're struggling because they may not understand the architecture of GitLab as well as someone like DZ does.
Or the need for the architecture,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, that's fair. So when you run into challenges like that with your team, DZ, would it be okay for David to reach out to you and pull you in to provide guidance on those things?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's very useful.
Yeah. Again, there is like problem here is not like a deep architectural backend knowledge, but just, you know, general perception of what we are doing, right, and how our users will work with it.
I agree, and a lot of the things, the recommendations that you're making are they're coming. We have issues that are open that actually show, like, hide the dismissed ones, or I think there's a tab so you can go into that area. So we are looking at the hierarchy or the content hierarchy, what's the most important and relevant information. So I think we're not in a great place. We're in a good place in that we know that these issues exist and that we need to go and take care of them. I think, David, you and I probably just need to figure out how to best prioritize these items and get them cleaned up. Some obviously easier to get cleaned up than others. But yeah, I think we're all on the same page here. We've got some work to do.
Okay, well, I'm going to drop off and head over to the other call. But thank you very much for your time, DZ.
Yeah, I'm so sorry again for my screw up. So it's nice to meet you, even though, I wish the first impression was better. But I tried to make up for it by taking a lot of good notes in the agenda.
Do any of you have a call right now? You can stay for 5 more minutes.
I'm happy.
I can stay.
Yeah, okay. So David is, product director. He will do a lot in prioritizing the things, but since both of you are UX, I just want to, to work a bit further. My idea is that there was like pages in GitLab, right? Like it's application and it's application to the work. And there is like pages that give you information, and there's pages when we should encourage action. And I think there is something, it's not just only secure, but in general, there's something we can improve there. For just an example, like if I sign up for GitLab, right, there is like, the first thing I see is empty dashboard, and it's like, it can be anything, right? It can be tons of different things, but like user comes to GitLab for the first time, what are they likely to do? They are either invited by someone, right, to join and work on the project, or they're going to create a new project, right? So unless they are already a member of a project, they are going to create a new project. There is nothing more interesting in GitLab to do. So the first thing that we should encourage users to do after they signed up is to create a new project where they can see features, they can play with GitLab. And similar thinking, I think, can be used, for example, here in Secure is like the merge request widget, right? The security information that you gave to user, it should encourage user to do something, right? Or block this merge request, or move forward with it.
Yeah, so just to let you know, the prioritization, excuse me, I'm losing my voice. The prioritization of things right now is show the data. So whatever data that we have available, we want to start presenting that, moving that into the UI. And so that's how things are prioritized right now. Do we have the data? Yes. Okay. Is it valuable to be in the UI? Yes. Okay, let's figure out how to do that. So how do we display that? Then the next step is exactly what you're talking about. Okay, what can they do with that data? Is there an action that we can encourage them to do? And that's the next step. So I think that that's coming. I don't know how quickly it's coming, but I know that that's what everybody's talking about now is, especially for the secure dashboard, we have this information, we're displaying it, now you can act on it. First-class vulnerabilities, we have a list view of vulnerabilities, but they can't do anything with it yet. But the next step is, you can create an MR, and then you can take action on those. You can close them out, you can dismiss them, you can perform additional activities on them. That's just not in the product yet, but it's definitely on the way.
Yeah, okay. And then also to speak to the what I'm going to call first time experience, because I think that's what we've been calling it. We're absolutely on the same page. So one of our designers redid the first time experience months and months and months ago. There was a little bit of flux with who owned it from a product management standpoint, but that's settled. A team has picked it up and it's being implemented. And that is, so part of it's a walkthrough, where basically your first time here, we're going to step you through the process of setting something up, and that includes a project. So I think, man, I think the things that you're thinking about are the same things that we're thinking about. We don't disagree with anything that you've said. And I think now what it comes down to is the priority and just getting it done.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good. Like then my basically last ask would be like, so this concept, like we have data, we show it, and only then we think about how users work with it. So I think it should not be that way, because at what point we stop throwing data at user and start thinking about what are the actionable items? I think we should do a hybrid when we get the data, we show it, and then we immediately think about what they can do with it. Because while we are throwing data at unexperienced users, we basically, we create a bad experience to users. And in 1-2 years, maybe it will be too late to think about what is the user experience should be, because then you have this problem when you will get a rejection from existing user base who is used to seeing this data now when you transform application from data only to experience only. So first of all,
you're preaching our sermon now.
Yeah, and I think there's a great example of that in Secure, which is showing confidence. So today we show confidence, but there's really no value to it. And so Andy, who's one of the product designers for Secure and Defend, that's what he has been proposing, is that we actually remove confidence data from the UI because it's noise. And so I 100% agree. We need to be very deliberate about what data we show and how we show it. And we need to know the value or the purpose of that data before we introduce it into the product. So yeah, as Christy mentioned, you're preaching to the choir. We're so happy that we have another advocate out there talking about these things. So thank you for bringing this forward. And yeah, I mean, this is great for me because I just see this as encouraging product to start prioritizing these more. They are doing the best that they can do at this moment, but I really think that this is going to help elevate the user experience aspect of it. So thank you.
Yeah, it sounds like part of what we're talking about here is how we're breaking MVCs down into iterations. And Valerie, do you have thoughts about why product has prioritized displaying broader data rather than displaying some data and making it useful?
I think it's the breadth versus depth aspect of it. And then I also want to acknowledge that this is a team that is rapidly growing. We've had a lot of PMs coming in and out or interim coverage. So I think that will settle down, over the next few months. So we needed to stabilize. We need to kind of create some consistency in what is actually going to be prioritized. I would even say that we have a difficult time in scoping in things appropriately. Like, we're really ambitious. We want to go after and do a whole bunch of things. So one of the things we've been talking about is theming our releases. I think that would be really helpful. Instead of trying to do all of these little things across all of these different disparate or somewhat disparate topics, that's really hard. The cognitive load and the context switching that's required to do that actually prohibits us from doing the amount of velocity that we could do.
Yeah, you're right that themes would,
yeah,
and nature be deep as opposed to
correct. Yeah, we would actually be able to do 3 or 4 things around a particular thing, so we would probably avoid some of these I just got a haircut and it kind of looks awkward stage of the product. And so yeah, I think that there are things that we could do from a prioritization standpoint that could help clean this up, and hopefully that's what we'll start looking into. I think that's what it comes down to. Is I think you're right, Christy, that we're probably breaking things down a little bit too small, but that's okay. I'm okay with doing the MVCs that are really small, but we probably need to bundle them up a little bit. And if we were to bundle them, then we would avoid these kind of awkwardness.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Awesome. Sounds good. Yeah, I'm glad it shadows its code, and yeah, you can see this creator pairing document. You can, Valerie, you can find some issues there, and yeah, feel free to comment there or address any of them. Anyway, yeah, at least I raised my concerns, and I'm glad I'm heard, and it seems like we're on the same page. So let's just move forward and make GitLab create this delight impression on the product.
Yeah, that's our goal, not just in Secure, but across the entire product. So that's absolutely what we want. Thank you for this. Thank you for your time. You are welcome to reach out to either one of us, but me in particular, just because I touch more areas of the product literally anytime you want. So please do. It's an open.
Sounds good, Chris. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have a good day. Bye.
You too.
All right, you too.
Bye.